there is something sick in our political culture. I mean, these attacks on Prime Minister Scott Morrison now, they're getting so personal and so unfair. Today, two of Morrison's biggest critics gave speeches at the National Press Club in, and I'll be frank, an orgy of hate for Morrison that should shame that press club. Now, one of the speakers that this club invited was Grace Tame, the former Australian of the Year, a victim of a pedophile, who last Australia Day made clear her contempt for Scott Morrison. And the other was Brittany Higgins, the former Liberal staffer who claims she was raped by a colleague after drinks inside Parliament itself. Now, be clear, a man has now been charged and faces court in June over that incident, that alleged crime, and he pleads not guilty. But at the press club today, the crowd made clear who it believed. Now, those screams and cheers, by the way, let me talk about that audience today before I get to the allegations thrown at the government and Morrison personally. Well, the audience was mostly women, although Labor leader Anthony Albanese was there with other Labor ministers. And of the 22 journalists who lined up to ask questions, just one was a man. And I don't think it was because men don't care about sexual abuse. I certainly do, for a start. I think it was more that a lot of men instinctively realised that this was really a bonding thing for women, a kind of mass rage where men had little to add. Now remember, it was only yesterday that Scott Morrison said sorry to all women who'd been harassed or assaulted in Parliament House, and said sorry to Brittany Higgins personally as well. But today she threw that all back in his face.
That starts with the Prime Minister. Yes, some of his language last year was shocking and at times, admittedly, a bit offensive. But his words wouldn't matter if his actions had measured up, then or since. What bothered me most about the whole "imagine if it were our daughter's" spiel wasn't that he necessarily needed his wife's advice to help contextualise my rape in a way that mattered to him personally. All he could do, and that's how he realised it was a bad thing. I didn't want his sympathy as a father. I wanted him to use his power as Prime Minister.
Okay, I'm starting to get the idea that nothing Scott Morrison does will ever be enough. But Brittany Higgins there turned out to be an angel of peace compared to Grace Tame. Tame went for Morrison's throat, mocked him personally, mocked his policies, mocked his words, mocked his views, and likened his political tactics to a pedophile's, even attacked his plans for new submarines, and then accused his government of twice trying to silence her. Here's her first claim.
Brace yourselves. On the 17th of August last year, not 5 months after being named Australian of the Year, I received a threatening phone call from a senior member of a government-funded organisation asking for my word that I wouldn't say anything damning about the Prime Minister on the evening of the next Australian of the Year Awards. You're an influential person. He'll have a fear, they said. A fear? What kind of fear? I asked myself. A fear for our nation's most vulnerable? A fear for the future of our planet? And then I heard the words, you know, with an election coming soon. And it crystallised. A fear. A fear for himself and no one else. A fear that he might lose his position, or more to the point, his power. Sound familiar to anyone? Well, it does to me. I remember standing in the shadow of a trusted authority figure being threatened in just the same veiled way. I remember him saying, "I'll lose my job if anyone hears about this."
I showed you at length. You can see her enjoying that, I think, and likening the tactics of these unnamed people, no evidence given, to a pedophile, okay? Then came her second claim.
Not long afterward, the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet conducted a review into the National Australia Day Council's selection process for the Australian of the Year Awards, a transparent intimidation tactic designed to rattle the cage of an organisation whose funding mostly comes from the federal government.
There you go. Now, Scott Morrison's office denies he ordered any such thing. Grace Tame has given no names, no evidence to back her claim. But she was on a roll, picturing herself at war with evil, a corrupt government, and the crowd cheered it on.
In any event, I would rather go down as a disappointment to an institution than sell out as a pandering political puppet to the corrupt forces that coercively control it.
It was all quite extraordinary. In that hour and a half of concentrated rage at the National Press Club, I heard not one serious practical policy from the two speakers for actually doing something more to stop sexual abuse. Yes, spend more money, there was that suggestion, check. Do more education, but you know, that's what you're always going to say. A little more of what is already out. I'm not sure that counts. In fact, when Grace Tame was asked later what Labor leader Anthony Albanese should do differently to Scott Morrison, all she could come up with was another cheap shot.
All Anthony would have to do is none of the things that Scott's done.
In fact, Tame's behaviour seemed to me quite extraordinary, manic at times, and sometimes downright hostile even to journalists, like this response to the question, would she campaign for any political party at the election? Now, bear in mind, she's already made it perfectly clear she likes Labor leader Anthony Albanese a lot.
Can we expect to see you on the campaign trail, and if so, for which party?
All right, that was all a bit strange, but it was gold for Labor, which in Parliament today exploited the rage in that press club room, all through question time with questions like this.
Just now at the National Press Club, we've heard Ms Grace Tame and Ms Brittany Higgins deliver powerful calls for change. Will the Prime Minister act on their call by taking re-election, including by adopting firm targets in the National Plan to end violence against women and children?
$2 billion on women's safety has been already committed and spent by this government.
So at the National Press Club today, I saw something that looked a lot like a sort of, I don't know, political rally, a group hate, and not the slightest attempt to reach out to Liberals to tackle an issue that should concern us all. And the more furious that Grace Tame in particular got, the more that crowd of mainly women applauded. And afterwards, journalist after female journalist, some visibly moved, thanked the speakers for what seemed to be for them a cathartic experience. Look, I know, I'm a man, and therefore my opinion will be written off by the kind of people that were there as just a gendered reflex, illegitimate. A man. But men have opinions too, just as valid as women's. And if you do want to fight sexual abuse properly, you really do need men to buy into it too. But I suspect that many people seeing what went on in the National Press Club today would probably think that this tribal venting was not meant for them. And if this is public debate today, as platformed, let me repeat, by the National Press Club, then reason is dead and rage rules.